What would you tell somebody else who's your age or a little older, maybe, who's thinking, maybe I want to move to Mexico? What would you say to them? Just do it. So I'm very excited today to be able to sit down with Susie. She's a friend of ours, and she has agreed to tell us her story so that you can see how other people live here in Mexico. Yes. So tell us about yourself.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Susie. I am a New York native. I was born and raised there, and I've always been traveling since a young child. My grandmother used to love to travel, which opens up this whole world for me. And here I am now, living in Mexico.
And how did you get to Mexico?
So COVID happened, and before COVID happened, my little friend here.
Hi.
Before COVID happened, I've always wanted to live outside of the States. It's something I desired for many, many years, especially growing up traveling the world. So when COVID happened, I saw an opportunity there. However, like most people, how do I do it? Was my biggest setback and hold up and anchor. So while I was trying to figure out how to do it, I ended up getting laid off from my job, which allowed me now more free time and that liberty to make a whimsical decision like, I'm going to pack my bags and move.
Right.
So I did.
And so you had an apartment, though, in New York?
I did. I had my cute little duplex apartment in Bushwick, which is really hard to find. If you're from New York, you know.
I'm not, but it sounds like New York is a busy place.
It's busy. The apartments are small, and it's very few apartments that you can find that are a duplex with a nice, big, large backyard to yourself that's not shared. So.
And you had a cat.
I got a cat during COVID, actually. So I adopted Seth, and 6 months later, I got laid off, and I seized the opportunity to potentially put my apartment up on Airbnb.
Nice.
So I had Amazon, just the cute, little knickknacks to make the place look a little bit more aesthetic. And I posted it on Airbnb, and no lie, within a day, I got so many hits, and a nurse that was traveling that had an assignment to do a 3-month job booked my place for 3 months. So once I got that place booked, I booked a flight to leave the day before the arrival. So I took off to Baja, California, sir.
All the way from New York to Baja.
To Baja on January 17th, 2021.
Wow. So you got to Baja California Sur, and you said you rented a car.
Yes. So I got to Baja. I landed in Los Cabos. I missed my flight on the way there. So I suddenly am with this cat that I so mindfully booked a direct flight. Right. Missed the flight. And now I'm like, oh my God, me and the cat now have to go on the next flight, which is a layover. So we were in the airport for quite a while. We did the layover, survived. We booked a rental from Los Cabos, and we hung out in Los Cabos for a few days. And then we checked the map and started exploring out further. So we went to Todos Santos and La Paz and just drove up and down regularly for a month.
Hi everyone. If you're finding this video helpful or entertaining in any way, be sure to
like and subscribe
and hit that notification bell to get notice of the next time we upload a video. In the meantime, let's get back to this one. Did you really enjoy staying there?
I was ready to move. I was ready to root myself in there and say, this is it. I loved it. The quality of life already was so polar opposite than what I was coming from. And not only that, I was in these little rural areas where not a lot of people were. Beautiful scenic places. The food was delicious. Walking up and down the Malecon in La Paz was just lovely, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with Todos Santos the most, I would say. I like the vibe there. I feel like it was just such a lax environment and good food.
But then you moved.
Then I couldn't get stuck because my whole thing was I wanted to travel Mexico to see where I could maybe set ground, for a few months. I was never imagining that I was gonna really full-time permanently just find my home and really make it my home. That was not a thought in my mind. So friends of mine from New York convinced me to detour from my original destination, which was Oaxaca, to Puerto Vallarta, which was not at all anything that I would expected. I thought it was going to be a port where just a bunch of families and cruises, and not really something I was looking for. I was coming from a city. To go to another city was not really up my alley, but I was convinced, and I came, and I was completely blown away.
And what blew you away about it?
The diversity. It is a place for everybody. It could be catered to the younger community. It could be catered to the party community. It could be catered to the elder community.
She looks at us when she says elder community. Okay.
Listen, I have an old soul.
And I have a young heart.
There you go.
And we do love it here too.
Me too, right? It's really just so lovely. You have oceans and mountains and jungle and beautiful people. The kindness is just unmatched and so safe.
So safe, and that we really don't fear anything.
Same. And, as a solo young female traveler, I feel so safe if I decide at 2:00 in the morning I want a taco and none of the close by taco stores are open, or stands rather. I have no problem walking 20 minutes away to just go get my taco.
And do you think that's because you speak Spanish?
Absolutely not. People here speak English. They speak it well. And it's not so much what you wear, what you look like. Everybody here treats everybody equally. There's no inequality that exists.
And what about if you get sick or medical care? What do you do for that?
Medical care is hard, but inexpensive and affordable, to access. So unlike the US, where maybe you have to see your general practitioner to then, get sent to a specialist, to then get sent to another specialist, and having to go down that line of referrals is just that cutting the middleman out. You go, have a cold, it's really bad, or have strep throat, you can go to the farmacia. They can definitely check it out for a small cost, and you'll get your antibiotics or whatever medication you need right then and there on the spot. And if it's something more serious, getting MRIs is accessible. Sure, it's expensive, but compared to what you would be paying somewhere in like the US for out-of-pocket medical care, it's much more affordable, and it's great care.
It is really great care. We've had the opportunity, should I say, to access it, but we don't really have to get sick very often, thank goodness.
Yeah, well, we all get sick. I've also had the experience of getting to, dabble into the whole medical world here. And it's actually quite interesting. And coming, being a paralegal that deals with the medical world in the States, it's actually a little bit more efficient, I think, and more accessible, making things a lot easier for someone who is so sick, right? Potentially, hypothetically speaking. And maybe doesn't have, the patience or the means or whatever it is to go down this line of referral that could, be costly with co-payments, or it could just get complicated.
It can get complicated. We are neighbors, but you haven't always lived here in our area. Where did you live before?
All right. So when I finally made it to Puerto Vallarta, I came straight to the heart of the romantic zone. I was on Basilio Vadillo, right by where all los camiones de Mismaloya leave. So if anybody's familiar with the area, that is where everything happens. You have all the restaurants. It's the beginning, I guess, of the Malecón from us, right? Or the ending, depending which direction.
Right, because the pier is right down there.
Right, the pier is right down there. So I was really 2 blocks away from the pier. It was lovely. I loved it, but it was only supposed to be a month. So here I am going to Oaxaca again, and then realized that there was a cute little surf town I wanted to check out. So I extended the trip for just a week. Turned out to be 11 months.
And that's where you were
And that's where I ended up going to San Pancho. So that's where I kind of, set ground for way longer than I ever imagined to set ground there. And that was, I guess you could say, my first apartment in this area was in San Pancho.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we love San Pancho too.
Beautiful.
So why did you leave San Pancho?
So I left San Pancho because I had to now make income since my Airbnb guest had left. My lease was up, so the apartment thing was no longer an issue. But to get by, I, of course, needed a job.
Right.
However, not having service or any, reliable internet, it was becoming difficult to continue staying in Mexico and doing it. So while I was in San Pancho, I tried to just hang around all the little beach clubs and the restaurants that had reliable connection, at least as reliable as it can get. Was able to land an interview for a temporary gig in my field as a paralegal for a New York personal injury law firm. And I ended up getting the job. So immediately I started looking at my options, and I came across an apartment, coincidentally, across the street from my first apartment up the pier in Zona Romantica. So I was given this apartment for dirt cheap.
Okay, what is dirt cheap?
Well, it was, at the time, I was paying $600 US. So that was pretty cheap compared to my $2,500 US in Brooklyn.
Right.
That's dirt cheap.
That is. And we have a lot of people who watch our channel, and they say that we should be living in those less expensive places. But what do you get for $600 down at the Romantic Zone?
I got lucky because it's not like most places that are $600 are. You get what you pay for. In everything, in every area, you get what you pay for, whether it's a house, whether it's a product, whether it's clothes. You're really paying for quality. My first apartment had a landlord that was a bit difficult to sometimes deal with. If you're watching this,
oh, I'm sure they're not. Landlords don't like our channel.
You'd be surprised. And if I wanted something fixed in the apartment, especially during rainy season when it's flooded,
oh yeah,
you have to wait your time. There's time, and then there's Mexico time.
That's true. And there is something to be said about having landlords that will take care of whatever you need when you need it. And that's what we have now.
Exactly. And to me, again, you're paying for what you get. And I will rather spend a little if long term it's going to continue making my livelihood peaceful. I want to live peacefully. I don't want to stress. I don't want to be thinking, oh my gosh, how am I gonna get gas, because the gas guy that keeps driving by is not stopping for me.
That's true.
Right?
That
or
happens.
My water tank is not working, or the water's coming out a little dirty because we just had an outage.
Well, we do have friends that we spoke with today that said that their toilets, they have 2 bathrooms, neither one is working, and it's been 4 days, and they can't get their landlord to come out and fix it.
But their rent price is great, so.
They are paying less than we are. Yes, they are. This is true, and so there are trade-offs. There are
trade-offs. I mean, it works for some, and I've definitely lived, small, and I've liked it. But I've also learned a lot about myself through my travels. I learned about what I like, and I learned that I have standards. So.
Yeah. And what about the house or the place that you lived up in the hills? Tell us about that one.
As this journey continues, I obviously never went to Oaxaca.
Yeah, she hasn't made it there yet. And we keep telling her she needs to go because that's one of my favorite places.
I love Oaxacan food. And I really love the city from the research I've done. And I definitely need to go visit the beaches. For some reason, Vallarta has me tied up.
Yeah, well, you are busy. You work during the day.
I do. I work during the day. I have a 10 to 3 New York time. So they're 2 hours ahead. I have to wake up a little earlier, but it's from my home, and it allows me the time to take out my dog, or if I need to run some errands, if I need to go to the market, I can go to the gym in the mornings,
Mhm.
It allows me to do a lot more than I would ever be able to do living someplace like New York, where now I'm taking into account commuting back and forth from Brooklyn to Manhattan just
Right.
to work 8, 9, maybe 10 hours a day in an office.
That you need clothes for. That's the thing. I was like, oh my gosh, you got to buy new clothes
Yeah.
for work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you asked me at one point, how did I end up on that hill?
Oh yes, let's go back to that, because that's a great story about your hill.
So I, living cheaply, now having this job, I was like, well, maybe it's time for something a little bit nicer. And it wasn't that much more, but I was getting so much more. I had 2 bedrooms.
Woo.
I had 2 bathrooms. I had a backyard. I had a beautiful outdoor living room that overlooked the whole entire bay and the church. It was absolutely stunning.
However,
in order to get to that apartment, or house rather, I needed to go up the staircase to heaven. So that was 145 steps up.
How many stairs?
145. And that's after I walk everywhere. That's after hiking a very steep, inclined hill to get to the stairs.
Oh my gosh. Can you tell us the story about the rainy season up there in that hill?
So rainy season could just, sneak up on you, the rain. And I was out one night, dinner with my friends, and everybody decided to go to the bars, and I hung out, and I know I need to be mindful about getting home because of those stairs. And not that I feared my safety, it's just, when you live in the jungle, in the mountain, that high up, you might, bump into or have some run-ins with some creatures out there in the wild.
Creatures like
what happened to me. So my friends, I knew there was going to be rain coming that night. My friends promised to take me home. They convinced me to linger. And by the time I got home, of course, now torrential downpouring.
Oh yes.
So the stairs turned into a waterfall. And here I am in my flip-flops trying to go up these stairs, holding on to dear life to nothing because there's nothing there. So now I'm crawling on all fours up these stairs with my flip-flops in my hand.
Oh my gosh.
And a family of opossums just gracing me, watching me go by.
Yeah.
Just like, we'll let you go.
And the chickens, you said chickens?
There was also at least 20 chickens in the vicinity, so they were just now all over the place because I'm going up, they're getting startled, the rain is crazy. Street dogs are a thing here, so the street dogs are going nuts. It was quite the scene.
So how long did you stay in that house?
That was a little short-lived. So that I ended up staying only for 3 months. I ended up breaking the lease because I had to fly back for a family emergency. Otherwise I would have stayed. But that was rough. And then after that, I ended up moving to where I am now.
And where you are now, what is that like?
Where I live now is the bougiest apartment I've had. I've always tried to do the local thing and live as cheap as I can because I think that, like most people coming from America or maybe even Canada, have that mentality that it's Mexico, it needs to be dirt cheap. And, yes and no, but that's another interview.
I know, but we do get a lot of pushback, especially because we have shown our apartment twice now. Once 6 months ago when we first started our channel, and we didn't really know what we were doing, and it took a while for us to get around to the apartment, and people really wanted to know what it's like to live here. And so we showed our apartment, and then we got told, oh, you're paying way too much for Mexico, and how dare you be gentrifying the area, and if you would just not accept those apartments at those prices, the prices will come down.
That's fair, and although I can agree, I think that that's a fair point, but I feel that even if there's people in Mexico that are also successful themselves and they seek after what meets their standards, I think that, like anyone else, we are just seeking things that meet our standards. Now, with respect to gentrifying it, I could understand that it's easy to put a label. Okay, here are these Americans paying more for this luxurious apartment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have the means for it. But that doesn't mean that we're not giving back to the community or
Exactly.
consciously living in a way where we're actually giving back and not just take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes a difference. And I also think that the inclusivityness also makes a huge difference, right? Because in the world we live in today, which is so controversial, to say the least,
Mm-hmm.
humanity is just going in the wrong direction. And it's comments like these that allow humans like making those comments to have a way of thinking that's just negative to society. I don't know how to really elaborate on that.
You know, we tried to find a place that was going to be comfortable for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we came to the decision that we're not going to live where we're not comfortable, or we worked really hard to be where we are now in life. And why should we live where we have water that isn't hot until the sun heats it in the middle of the afternoon?
I agree.
Or why, you have termites eating the walls and things like that. But also, we were told that when a developer comes in and puts in a new building, the person who they bought that land from is now living better. So that to me sounds like progress. And if you own a piece of property and somebody from a foreign country like the US comes in and buys up that piece of property and puts in a building like this, it just helps the neighborhood. And I think, we're kind to the neighbors and we buy things from the neighbors, their stores. And
something very important to know is location matters. It's not okay to move or to displace nature or people building houses on the beach, which is public, and then making them private. And I think that is what gentrification is. I think that most people are just not conscious of our planet and needing to care for our planet. And most people are not conscious that we're all human.
Yes.
And we all need to be kind to each other.
What are your plans for being here in Mexico, they would ask?
I don't have one. I, like the very beginning, I'm very whimsical and very spontaneous, so I don't think too much about it. I just go for it and just let, life unwind on its own.
Well, what one thing people will ask us, and they will wish that I had asked, so I'm going to ask it, is, are you afraid anytime being a young single female living here? Are you ever afraid?
Never. I feel so safe. I mean, I've been here for 4 years now, going on 5 soon, and I am very friendly with all the locals. Every time, like, you're somebody who is new coming into a neighborhood where these people have been here for many generations. Everybody knows everybody. I've now learned to meet my neighbors and I say hi to everyone, and every day I walk everywhere. I rarely ever Uber unless I have to, go to the supermarket for a big shopping, but
right.
Everything's walking distance. So since everybody knows you, it's, everybody looking out for one another. So it makes me feel very safe. It makes me feel like I belong and I'm part of a community. And I know that everybody's got my back, so I feel good.
And that's wonderful. What would you tell somebody else who's your age or a little older maybe, who's thinking, maybe I want to move to Mexico? What would you say to them?
Just do it. Don't overthink it. And the worst that can happen is you can just go right back to where you came from. It will get hard. It will be challenging, but those are the moments that will launch you to where you want to be.
Well, we could talk and talk and talk.
We can talk and talk. That's true.
We might have to have another one and of these conversations another time.
For sure.
But I think this has been really fun. I've enjoyed it.
I have it too. I'm looking down because I have my little puppy.
Yes, we all are.
Melon, who's from San Pancho.
Yes, and so she has 2 pets.
I do. I have Seth, who I adopted during COVID. I mentioned earlier, and he's from Brooklyn. So he's been traveling with me. And the cat that used to be so curious of the outside world wants nothing. He wants no business out there. He knows what's out there, and he's happy at home.
He's happy to be at home, yeah.
And Melon is a very spunky little fella who loves to travel.
And you found him when he was itty bitty.
He was itty bitty. He was fitting on the palm of my hand.
Wow. Yeah. We love dogs too, and someday we'll have another one, but we travel too much.
Oh, he's gonna make
Here
his
he
debut.
comes. Come say hi.
Oh, sorry, buddy. This is Melon. Little Melon.
Speak.
Hola.
Say hola. He speaks Spanish. Does he speak English?
Yes, he's bilingual. After his first trip to New York, he
yes.
picked up on the language. Pretty good.
Very good. Very good. Well, this has been really fun. So let's
fun.
go ahead and say gracias por mirar el video.
Gracias, chicos. Adiós.
Hasta luego. Ciao.